In number 10, we're once again going to use the velocity equation featuring Doppler shift. So velocity equation is Doppler shift divided by the wavelength from the star times the speed of light. To calculate Doppler shift, that is delta lambda, in other words, the change in wavelength, we're going to take the wavelength from the star, which is this one, and subtract it from the wavelength from a stationary source, or lambda nu, and so this is lambda nu, and we can plug and chug our numbers. So Doppler shift equals 882.40 nanometers minus 882.55 nanometers, giving us a Doppler shift of negative 0.15 nanometers. Now this negative here, without doing any additional calculations, already tells us that our wavelength got smaller. We went from a stationary wavelength of 882.55 to a moving wavelength in Arcturus of 882.40 nanometers. So a smaller wavelength means a blue shift, which means the object, or in this case Arcturus, is moving towards Earth. So we can take our velocity and plug it into Doppler shift. So velocity equals negative 0.15 nanometers divided by the wavelength from the star, which is 882.40 nanometers, times the speed of light, which is 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. To calculate this, we'll take the Doppler shift we calculated, which is negative 0.15, divide that by our observed wavelength, which is 882.40, and we'll get this. And then we multiply that by the speed of light. I usually put this in parentheses, but just to show you that you don't need to use parentheses, speed of light is 3 times 10 to the 8th, so I'll enter the multiplication symbol, and then 3 EE8, and then I'll just hit enter, and that gives me negative 51,000 approximately. Nanometers cancels out, giving us a velocity equals negative 50,997 with some change meters per second, which of course will round to a more reasonable number of velocity equals negative 51,000 meters per second. If you want to write that in scientific notation, you can do negative 5.1 times 10 to the 4th meters per second. And as we said before, because it's negative, it's a blue shift, which means that Aldebaran is moving towards Earth.